Welcome to our complimentary webinar, which is brought to you today in partnership with Auscontact's accreditation partner, Snapshotz Online, and it's entitled The Science of Strategic Customer Service. Over the next hour, with a cast of thousands from here and across the globe, we'll be covering off this topic, and our speakers are Michael Clark, Senior Executive Fair Work Ombudsman, Patty Trejo, Contact Center Director, Citizen Council of Mexico City, Gabrielle Mendez, Global CX and CEC Senior Consultant and Auditor, Greg Radford, Customer Relationship Manager, Account Managers Telecommunications Group, VicTrack, and last, but certainly by no means least, is Chris Lemanowski from Snapshotz Online and is a quality consultant. We hope during the next hour to spark your interest, and of course, remember there will be a Q&A at the end of the session. I'm Fiona Keogh, CEO of Auscontact, and your moderator for today. While we're waiting for everyone to join us, let's use the time wisely to quickly run through some housekeeping with you. Remember, it's important to interact with us today to maximise the benefit, and as you know, there's no need to take too many notes because we'll be providing you with the slides and recording of the webinar. To interact with us, please use the questions pane on the control panel. You can ask questions or make comments for Michael, Patty, Gabrielle, Greg, Chris, or myself from time to time. Remembering we're going to have a full Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So please type the questions as you go along, because if you're like me, you'll forget what you wanted to ask. I know that many of you are familiar with asking questions, but let's try out the questions pane on the control panel now, just in case we haven't been practicing in recent times. So the question for today is, and it's got a bit of an Australian flavour to it, is what is the major issue that Australian farmers are facing today? And many of you would be aware of the media coverage that's going on at the moment on it. So hands on keyboards and start typing your answers. Okay, well, Julie knows the answer, and 2 exclamation marks because it is pretty horrible. Do you win, Julie? I don't know. There's no prize, but we like people that are switched on and engaged. So, yes, you win from that perspective. Well done. Catherine also knows. She's only got 1 exclamation mark. So, guys, the answer is, Amanda knows as well. Oh, 4 exclamation marks. Oh, it's an extreme case, but New South Wales was called as being 100% in drought overnight. So pretty dire straight for our farmers. Oh, Julie says Amanda's more excited than she is. Well, there you go. That's the competition. Let's see who's more excited. All right, so thank you. Everyone knows that we are in drought, and I no doubt there will be water restrictions very shortly. If you're listening through headphones or speakers and experience any issues with your internet connection, please note that on the control panel you can click to switch to the telephone. A toll-free number for your country with an access code and the PIN will appear on your screen for you to dial, or you can raise your virtual hand and one of the Auscontact team will rush to your aid. So with that, I'm very pleased to welcome a brand new voice to host and lead the discussion for today, Chris Lemanowski from Snapshotz Online. It's over to you, Chris.
Thank you very much, Fiona, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to all of our guests that are on board today. Today we are going to have a look at the agenda, if we can go to the next slide, and what we're going to travel through. Now, thank you, Fiona, you've introduced the panel, and as we can see, we're transcending international borders today with several international panelists joining us. We're going to be looking and asking why customer service is now a science. We're going to be reviewing to see that is customer service being transformed, particularly in your own organizations and around Australia and the globe. Is CS and CX now a strategic lever? How has the accreditation process benefited organizations today? And Snapshotz also will be taking you through a demonstration of the Snapshotz online tool to show you exactly how easy it is to use. And we'll be discussing the accreditation process, the next steps to go through that process, and some general information around both the tool and the accreditation. So it was once called the art of customer service. So we're going to ask, how and why is it now a science? So firstly on that question, and might quickly go to the next slide just before I post that to the panel. So as we can see, it's now actually quite a complex piece. There are many, many factors that factor into organizations outside of the front line of how we answer calls, how we deal with emails, with chat, with information or inquiries that come through. So in the past, the focus has been on operations, so seeking to improve efficiencies and customer service and reduce costs. Today, customer service and customer experience are emerging as front-line ammunition in the fight to gain and retain customers and to deliver services more effectively to our clients, to citizens, to ratepayers. So customer service has now evolved into a strategic asset. It needs a quantifiable and aimed approach that brings value to organizations and their customers, employees, and stakeholders. So what we are seeing is that savvy organizations are employing increasingly strategic approaches to customer service management. They use multiple metrics, quantifying quality, values, and behaviors to employ a scientific approach to customer service. Now, this is also one of the things that the Auscontact accreditation program can provide, and they can provide the tools for your organization to be able to do the same. Now, having said that, I would like to actually hand over to the panel now, and perhaps looking at to Michael first, if we may, to talk a little bit about how they believe that contact center or customer service has now become a science. Over to you, Michael.
Thanks, Chris. So I'm with the Fair Work Ombudsman, and we're Australia's workplace relations regulator. So, customer service is an important aspect of what we do. We receive inquiries from employees and employers about their wages and workplace conditions. And I think the evolution to science away from art has been really, as you've talked about, a growing range of ways that organisations and individuals can contact people. And if I think about our organisation, trying to understand what our customers are seeking now involves looking at our website, looking at social media, looking at the broader media spectrum. There's a range of different data sources that will impact on what someone might contact us about, let alone the way that they might interact with us. So all of those data points, information sources, you can play a bit of art in there, absolutely, but more and more understanding those is a real science.
Thank you very much, Michael. I might hand over to Paddy, if you're there, please. Paddy and Raphael, are you with us?
Yeah, we are with you. We agree. In our case, we receive complaints and allegations from victims on several crimes that happen in Mexico City. So we are trying to, in a short time of period, let them to our advisors that are lawyers and psychologists, and we classify the reports and we forward the case to the corresponding authorities, and the center provides the follow-up, and the center is responsible for the follow-ups to the public authorities in charge and the case, and we review the solution that are given to the citizens. And that is the service that involves that not only our company, but external authorities.
Okay, thank you, Raphael. Now, Greg, if I can actually hand over to you to tell us how you are seeing that customer service is really moving into a science.
Okay, from a VicTrack perspective, I guess we already understand that the customer psyche, and that's been a focus of many organisations for a great period of time. And a simple example of that would be just acknowledging someone if they walk into a retail centre, as an example. But over time, we've seen that that the evolution of contact centres or customer experience or customer satisfaction has evolved considerably, especially with the introduction of technology. So now we see customer satisfaction surveys and the use of data mining in those surveys. We look at customer segmentation now, not just geographical or age, but also their engagement factors. So, are these customers open to new information and ideas, or are they reluctant? And then giving consideration as to why, if they are reluctant. We've obviously got self-service options, and an old but still a favourite of mine is abandonment rates within contact centres, because I think that tells us a patient's thresholds from customers. With complaints, looking at data from complaints, you do a full biopsy of that to understand what triggers complaints, and then using that information to create principles or processes to help circumnavigate future issues. So that's how I believe that it's moved from an art into a very skilled science practice.
Thank you very much, Greg. And lastly, but not least, over to you, Gabrielle, as much experience and as an international consultant in this space. What have you been seeing across the centers you've worked with?
Well, I think that the fast accelerated technological change that we are experimenting is changing everything. So we are changing business models. We are changing the way people collaborate, and the way that the customers behave. So that's now we have a lot of information also. We have a lot of data that can be analyzed. So in that environment, I think that then we are moving from just that art and those feelings about to have hard data to analyze. And that's one of the main points to think about a science. Keeping those aspects of being an art and the engagement of the customer, but mainly we have a lot of information now, and we are going to see more elements to be included on services and new models, and we will be able to analyze all that information to serve better the customers.
Gabrielle, thank you very much. That's, I think, quite insightful from the entire panel. Moving on to the next slide, slide 8. I'm going to ask the question of the panel. Look, customer service today is not limited to the contact center. It encompasses the entire organization. Now, I think this, for those of us that have been in the contact center industry for quite some time, this is something we've always recognized, but it's something that now the organizations are clearly having to recognize and accept and move in place with that. So I'm wondering, how true is this of your organizations? So I might ask Michael first, if I can, of how this is applying to yourselves.
Yeah, look, absolutely. Very, very pertinent for us, Chris. Contact centers once upon a time were absolutely seen as one part of an organization, perhaps not an integrated part. For us as an organization, it is a fundamental focus of the whole organization, is ensuring that the customer experience is strong, that there is a low customer effort in what we do, and that runs right across all of our customer service teams, our technology teams, communication, social media, and really focusing on, what service we're providing. And that's a fairly significant shift. We talk about what are upcoming trends or issues, how do we best manage those from a strategic perspective, what integrated campaigns do we have in place around managing demand, and that's something that has shifted over the last probably 5 years for us. But there is very strong view that customer service is the business of everybody in the organisation.
Thank you very much, Michael. Greg, how would this be true of yourselves at VicTrack?
Well, VicTrack is a very interesting beast, and most people don't know what it does to start with. So in its very simplistic form, it's the commercial arm of the state government, and my department manages the telecommunication needs of public transport. So we've got a very broad spectrum of staff and their skills and expertise. We have a lot of engineers, for example. So due to the uniqueness of VicTrack, it's understandably difficult for non-customer facing team members to understand that what they do can impact on customers. Thankfully, there's little resistance to this as a concept, and the education process within VicTrack continues, and it's resonated from senior management down. So we have regular forums with the CEO where this, amongst other matters, are raised. We have keynote speakers that are invited along to the business to discuss their roles and experiences. And this will often touch on the important themes such as customer service and one team. Our company's also introduced KPIs or KRAs that are more aligned with this line of thinking. And courses are being held internally covering emotional intelligence and mindfulness. And we have customer relation and effective communication training. That was interesting introducing that to field staff, as you can imagine, because for the vast majority, I think, well, why are we here? And it's only as we link back key messaging that they understand that they are a very important and integral part of the organisation, and they do influence on customer service.
Wow, thank you very much for that, Greg. Okay, now coming at you, if I can, Patty. Look, is your contact center and service center still viewed as a traditional cost area?
It is not. We are seen as a non-profit organization. Well, for some players in this field, our company could be considered as a cost area, but it has proved its value with an ample recognition from the main customers that are the citizens served. Internally, the contact center, it is the heart of the institution reports, and we are the reports that we generate are very valuable.
Okay, thank you. And
may I add some?
Oh, please.
May I add some points of the Citizens Council of Mexico City? It's a center that is very interesting in my point of view, because they are an organization, a private institution that helps the authorities in many problems, complaints, and allegations from victims of several crimes. So the Citizens Council is a main element to review the performance of the authorities, security authorities. So it's a very strategic component of assuring that those services, critical services for citizens, are kept in a good way with a good performance for citizens. It's very interesting. So it's not only an organization that does something by itself, that's an organization that covers a wider process helping citizens.
Yes, wow. We also make visits to some victims from crimes. So the attention that we give to citizens, it is not only covered in the contact center. We can give help with lawyers and psychologists in the streets if they are if we are asked, or we can give that help, and we can accompany the people if they need if they have some bigger problems. We can accompany them to the law or to some authorities to help them solve some of those problems that are sometimes really difficult.
Wow, that's quite incredibly diverse and quite a level of responsibility there.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. Okay. Moving on with that, and that to check, is transformation from a traditional contact center to a strategic lever for customer service a challenge for your organization, a challenge today? And what are you doing to overcome these challenges? I might quickly post that. Well, actually, Gabriel, we had you online, so I might stick with you for a moment if you can reflect on what you've been seeing in your space across different centers.
Well, yeah, it's a challenge because it involves the whole organization, as we have said, with the digital transformation that we are experimenting. Then we are not just changing one service or one product, we are changing the whole organization. So we need to deal with the people, with the structure even of the company. I have experimented some companies that are more worried about the structure. They are not just looking at the different areas or departments they have. The main reflection is, do we have the organizational structure that we need for this transformation? So that's a big challenge for the organization, for the people, the culture, the skills that will need new employees according to, of course, the customers. And another point that I have seen a lot is that tasks and actions that companies are now doing, like Royal Holiday here in Mexico, to know better the customer, to have a map of the customer journey and experience, but not in the contact center, in the whole life of the services of the company.
Thank you, Gabriel. Yes, that and very, very true, I believe, for a number of organizations to be able to track that through. And I'm handing over to you, Michael, if what we're seeing there with the Ombudsman as far as customer service moving into a more of a strategic point.
Yeah, look, I think similar to Gabriel's point, for us has been a lengthy transformational journey involving the whole organisation. So outlining initially an early customer experience strategy probably 5 years ago. What kind of technology investments did we need to make to help empower that kind of change? The people capability side of things. So how do we empower and empower our people and identify the capabilities we need? We also, look to shift from a very rules-based model of service to a principles-based model, and of course, looking at opportunities to continue to drive the profile of customer service within the organisation. So that's benchmarking programs, award and recognition programs, getting people to come in and visit and listen in. Driving ideas and innovation and digital transformation from the front line. All of those things have been part of a transformation journey probably over the last 5 years.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, moving on. So what we've now seen over, say, the last 12 months, we've had 332 Snapshotz online customers who have purchased new technology. Now, in the last, in 2018, I should say. Now, 32% of those were replacing old technology, which was 5 years or older, 20% to drive new technology directions for the organization and to shift to digital. 18% were doing that to engage and meet growing multi-channel needs of customers and their expectations. 13% to gain competitive advantage over their competition, clearly, and 7% were seeking to increase productivity and to follow that mantra, which we all know quite well, which is to do more for less. So thank you for that, Dimple. That's the slide we're on. So moving forward, thank you. What we've actually seen in looking at that and the information that's come back is that in the case for reduction in headcount through technology, this failed for 97% of our 332 Snapshot customers who did purchase new technology recently. So what this is telling us and what we actually see is that purchasing new technology means the ability to redefine the way you work. It's not something to reduce your headcount. So if we're moving on to the next question with that, I wanted to find out if any organizations that were on the panel today have purchased customer interaction technology recently in the last few years, and has that purchase helped to redefine the way you work? So again, Michael, I might come back to you on this.
So we've invested over the last few years, Chris, in a variety of technology uplifts, new CRM system, an online paying conditions tool, and we're in the process of midway through deploying a new contact center platform. And I think it's absolutely true that what we've seen from our experience is not necessarily, you know, a straight decline in headcount, but a change in the interactions that are coming through. So the more that we're able to empower our customers online, the more complex interactions that we have coming through our traditional channels. And so, you know, the nature of the work that our people are responding to and resolving has changed, because a lot of the simpler inquiries can be handled 24/7 through our online tools and resources. So that certainly has been a factor of the change program that we've been on.
Great. So online technologies there helping 24/7. That's fantastic. And Gabrielle, I might ask you as well, what have you been seeing as far as how the purchasing of new technology has helped redefine the way organizations work?
Well, I think that the companies that I have seen, or even I have advised about it, is that technology is the last component. What it's important is to understand the customers, what they want, the journey, the experience, etc. And then at the end comes the technology. So what I have seen is now the companies that were kind of laggard organizations in terms of adopting technology, now they are making tests. And sometimes that's something that I recommend, to make tests in terms of configuring some service that is going to change the process for the customer. And now that is possible using the cloud solutions and platforms that we have. And so we can take just a segment of your customers, make a test, and then look for the return on investment of that different way to do things, and see that if we can cover the other products or services in a wider way.
Look, thank you, Gabriel. I think you made a very important point. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and so I have seen companies that mainly have changed technology just because it was obsolete. One of the main points that you mentioned in the previous slide. But now the tests are going to the cloud. That's what I have seen.
Actually, thank you for that's exactly the same point I was going to come across. I think it's very valuable mentioning there that many organizations are changing technology for the sake of changing technology's sake, and this is not an isolated thing that's going to give us a solution that we suddenly expect improvement. You have to look at the people, you have to look at the process. So that's very valuable. Thank you. So moving on, one of the things we've now been reviewing and seeing in the last quarter is that a number of 132 Snapshotz online customers identified that assessment and continuous improvement has increased productivity by 30%. So what we're seeing is that centers with formal continuous improvement programs record more engagement from staff, higher productivity, and significantly higher customer satisfaction than those without a program in place. And I think this is a very important piece, because I believe that all of us are always seeking to increase our engagement and productivity. So it's the process that we go about doing it that makes the difference. So with that, moving on to the next question, and also being very aware of time, just wondering what has been some of the experiences with the assessment and accreditation process for organizations, particularly in this regard with continuous improvement, and how this has benefited customers and your teams. So I might ask Patty first, and Rafael, if you're able to comment on that.
For our institution, the implementation of the model was a very nice and interesting experience. The methodology to review the pillars, sections, and correspondent verification points are clear, and the tool is very user-friendly. It allowed us to organize our departments in an agile way, and once identified the gaps between our current state and the future one, we were able to work in substantial improvements. That's made our work easier because we optimize our resources. Those sections that cover human resources environment had impacted in a pleasant work atmosphere, and that impact in a increase of satisfaction level for employees and citizens. Citizens are satisfied and recommend our service. It's good. We are very happy with that model.
So, Patty, I think it sounds fair to say that it's had some wide-ranging advantages and improvements across your organization.
Yes, it has been. Sorry.
That's okay. So thank you. And look, Greg, I might ask you as well, as far as what you've seen, and particularly in regards to areas of improved staff engagement and productivity, and of course CSAT. So with the accreditation, or how you've seen the change with that through the accreditation process.
Sure. I think the introduction of this process was a bit of a reality check for VicTrack. I know that with the assessments, or the initial assessments, which was traffic lighted, green, amber, and red, that there was 0 green in the first run. But thankfully, a short 3 months later, a third of the criteria was sitting in green. So that was a particularly good outcome. The areas that we saw improvement, and this is not an exhaustive list, but the caller contact center objectives and strategies was one. Our disaster recovery plan, data security and compliance all lifted. Health and safety, so looking at health, safety and the environment. Staff well-being, so which covered the daily work routine and work practices within the center, and then our service measures as well. I think one of the key outputs here was that the business has dedicated time for employees to review the way we do business, and then looking at that and comparing it to both internal and external satisfaction results. We're actively promoting people to suggest changes, and we're implementing those that meet our requirements. And so from that perspective, we're seeing certainly staff engagements improving, but also our relationship with our customers is definitely improving as well. So it's been a very worthwhile exercise for us.
Wonderful. And Greg, look, I might point out as well, as from what I understand with VicTrack, you've used the tool well and truly outside of the actual customer and contact center space, and more across other areas of the organization, and done so quite effectively. Would that be correct?
That's absolutely correct. So I touched on earlier that we're a very broadly experienced group of people. We have engineers and technicians, but we also have, like others, we have a finance team and so on and so forth. We introduced this, I guess, more recently with the engineering team, and again, we're seeing similar results to what we did with the contact center. The staff improvement has improved, but also I think staff engagement's improved because they're seeing and feeling that we're empowering them to play an active role in the way we're shaping this business.
That is great. Look, thank you very much. Okay, so if we move on to the tool and we can start to talk about how what this process looks like. and what other organizations could potentially leverage into as far as not just their contact centers, but across whole of organization and had the use as a continuous improvement platform. So the Snapshotz online framework, it's an assessment that covers over 700 variables and data points. It combines the depth of a finance audit with broad, pure research methodologies to assess, benchmark, and generate instant, actionable reports. And that's a really, really important piece to understand, is that as soon as you finish the process, you have instant reports available at your fingertips with the outcomes. The framework promotes a holistic view of what happens when people, technology, and process come together. So it does cover all those 3 points, so your people, your process, and your technology. It also instantly provides benchmarks against world-class standards and best practices, so you can view that in your own vertical as far as an industry vertical is concerned, or across the particular key service platform or point. And very importantly, it promotes a continuous improvement platform. So with the tool, you can actually revisit it regularly as you are progressing through your change process to improvement, and to constantly benchmark against yourself as to see how you are traveling. So on to slide 15, we can see that with this tool, there's actually 8 primary sections that it reviews. And each of those sections, which we'll go into, have 29 subsections covering over these 700 variables and nearly 530 checkpoints. It goes across corporate objectives and strategic fit. It looks at your CRM, so your customer relationship management, covers health, safety, and staff well-being, the contact center structure. It touches on recruitment, career development, and REM, the training that's involved in your center and teams, looks at internal communications, and of course, your operational metrics. So it covers quite a broad range of areas and pieces. So on to the next slide. What's really important as well is there's, as we sort of said, customer service is a science, and the tool is as well. It's based on some best practices derived from your ISO 9000 and ITIL, so into the year, and also European standards. So it's got a very solid framework behind the piece and the tool itself. It takes into consideration government regulations from the UK, the EEC, USA, Australia, and New Zealand. So it very much covers in the international space, tools from around the globe. It meets the ISO contact center and BPO standards. There is research provided by leading technology and solution vendors that also feed into the tool. So there's quite a lot of data that sits behind this, is particularly in reference to the benchmarking. It's a tool that's been used by management consultants and academic institutions. Also has feeds in it from Gartner, Frost & Sullivan, and Forrester, which I'm sure are names that everyone here today would recognize. It also captures the best practices of users on the tool itself. And this is information that you have relayed to you in real time. So as different organizations progress through the tools on their journey, and you benchmark yourself, you are benchmarking with up-to-date data in real time with where it is at nationally and the rest of the world. So on to the next slide, if we could, please. Now, how easy is the tool to use? Well, what I might do is actually bring Gabrielle online, if I may, and back into the piece, to talk to us a little bit about the tool and, again, the ease of use and what it looks like for the end user when you're going through. Gabrielle.
Thank you, Chris. Well, I think I have had a chance to work with different models. There are models or standards for accreditations in Mexico, in general in Latin America, or in Asia, or in Europe. I have had chance to use different models. And one of the main values that I see with the Snapshotz Online is that it's very easy to use and covers many aspects of those pillars that are very important for a customer engagement center. And it's very easy to use. So we have a model that we can follow as a reference. What is very important, because once you do a diagnostic, you need to do that diagnostic against best practices. Because if you don't do that, then you depend on that consultant that is going to make the diagnostic, and it depends the experience of that consultant. Once you have the framework of best practices, points that are important to cover in your operation, then you can generate the gaps from your current state to the better or the world-class state. You can define the gap in a very granular way. So in Snapshotz Online, it's very easy. Once you have your login and password, you enter to the platform. Please, the next slide, Chris. And in your account, let's say, you can have different evaluations, not just one. Maybe in your organization, you have 3 different call centers. Maybe you have 1 call center for collections, maybe 1 for customer service, maybe in 2 different cities, etc. So you can have all your evaluations ready there. Once you want to start one of them, you just click on start. One point that is very important for me is that one that says at the bottom, you have report C100. Once you finish your evaluations, even you can do the benchmark between your sites or your services. You can benchmark not only against those evaluations that are already on the Snapshot platform, you can do the benchmark between or among your specific centers. The next slide, please. So once you click on start for one of that specific evaluations, you have the 8 sections, the 29 subsections, and the 529 verification points ready. You can click on any of those subsections and you can start the evaluation. One point that is very, very nice here is that you can assign different sections or subsections to be answered by different departments. It's very common that in this process, the human resource points are going to be answered by the human resource department. The operations area is going to answer the technology points or some metrics, etc. So it's not just one person that can use the platform. It can be used by several people. The next slide, please. Once you choose one of the subsections you want to start, then you will be displayed with a question. In this case, we are in section 1.3, question number 1. And so the questions are placed in a way that you can answer if you cover that point, yes or no, or is not applicable. You can put comments in that box to define if it is yes, where you have that, in which document, etc. And you can go deeper if you want. When you go and you answer yes for certain points or most of them, then you will answer how well you do it. If completely done or in a beginning stage, etc. You can see also at the bottom of this screen, you have the questions there and they are going to change in color if you already have answered them. If they are in gray, if you have not touched them, they will become green if you answer it, etc. So you can keep track on the tool very easily your answers and your progress during the evaluation.
So Gabriel, it really allows you to do quite an in-depth review of each question as well. So you can turn around and assign weightings and exactly where you are from each point.
Exactly. Exactly. So you have a view when if we would go, not do it now, but if we go to this list of the 29 subsections, you can see how many questions have answered on each one of them, how many are remaining, and with a click, you can go and continue where you left that subsection being evaluated. And we go deeper, we can go deeper in the platform. In this screen, we have the task assignments. For example, I answered that there are some points that are not documented, or we are not keeping track of certain metric, etc. So we can now document here, record that we need to do that, and specify who is going to do it, what's the priority it has, and once we finish the evaluation and we close the evaluation, even those people will receive via email, because we specify here all that information previously, they will receive what are the points that they need to address immediately. That's great value, because if we are not acquainted to do these tasks, the evaluations or accreditations this way, we need to wait to the consultants to finish their paperwork and receive a report, and then start to work on those gaps, those areas of improvement that were observed. This way, immediately we can start advising people what are the tasks that they will need to address.
Okay, can I grab just aware of time, so just progressing through into the reports?
Yes, yes. Once you close the evaluation, there are 4 main reports that are generated: the summary report, the question detail, the focus areas, those that were ranked or scored low, and the task, that explanation that I made, that you defined who is going to do what with that priority, you will get a report with that detailed information.
Okay, great.
The next one, please. In this, this is an example, for example, that we have the subsections, the total questions or verification points that were answered, the score, the total score. We have 3 colors in red, yellow, and green. So that means the grade of the completeness, let's say, that you have, or best practice in that point or the subsection. And very valuable, at the right end, the column, we have the benchmark, the score, your score, what are the best scores on the platform. So that gives you immediately a sense of the gap that you have.
Yeah, so this is your traffic lights, so you can see your benchmarking. Sure.
Exactly. And in the next example, we have a detailed report including the tasks that you documented during the evaluation. In this report, you will have all that information together in the same page, let's say. And for each point, you see, for example, 2.1, 0.46, 35, etc. So we have here the 529 points with your answer, with the tasks that you documented, your score, and the benchmark for each one of them. I think that this is very valuable.
Thank you. And so moving into the next slides, and something I'll briefly mention, this entire process is something that a Snapshotz consultant would help you through and achieve in 1 to 2 days generally. So covering with the identified team members and areas of your organization that should ideally participate. So what we're seeing now is a snapshot or a high-level report, to use the term, of what would look like for an existing bank customer with Snapshotz and the levels of improvement they've traveled through. So on the previous slide, we saw just a very high-level report, which was identifying the different areas between 2017 and 2018. And just so you can look at in the red, in 2017, 17 areas needed improvement, 11 were on the way, and 1 was achieving international and worldwide best practice standards, and then the comparison to 2018. On the slide you're viewing now, you can see a bit more of a drill down as to actually what areas are captured in those that are needed to look at those improvements. So in 2017, there are the areas that were in the red, and between that and 2018, there's been a significant improvement with 8 of those that have moved on into the green space or the yellow space, and you can see which one of those areas they are. These reports also can be drilled into a bit deeper to look at them at an operational level. So as you can see with this particular online Snapshotz online customer, they've actually improved over 55% in just the 1 year. So moving from 17, 11, and 11 areas that were in the red and yellow to 5 areas that were now at international best practice standards and 15 traveling and nearly reaching there. So that's quite a significant improvement that they've been able to travel to through use of the tool. So on the next slide, we can see again a similar organization that was, again, the bank struggling with their customer service piece. In 2017, in the red, they were having quite a significant number of customers that were not being served, and calls were not being received. We can see in green that in 2018, through the use of the tool, we've had 43% more customers being served. So this is an improvement to customer outcomes. This is an improvement to avoiding brand damage that was continuing prior to use of the Snapshotz tool. So very quickly as well, one of our customers was the Royal Holiday, and they've done this process and accreditation for a number of years. So on slide 28, I might hand over to Gabriel briefly to talk about the accreditation point that we've seen with Royal Holidays.
Yes, well, Royal Holiday is a resorts time-sharing club with thousands of customers in different parts of the world. So they started in a development stage. They have made a huge progress that actually are in a mature state. They are very pleased to do the process, aligning all efforts of the company.
Thank you very much, Gabriel. And moving on, we can just quickly touch on the fact that Snapshotz Online is in over 35 different countries, and we are fortunate enough to have over 2,500 customers and growing. So there's a number of names I think you might recognize on that slide. And at this point, I'd like to say thank you very much to our panelists, and thank you very much to attendees. And as I will hand over to Fiona to take over Q&A and some further discussions on the accreditation piece.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks everybody for sharing your insights and some of your personal challenges and being so transparent. From an Auscontact perspective, when we were determining what our future was going to be and what we might offer to our members to add value, hands down, Snapshotz were our preferred supplier in terms of providing the capability for our members to either certify or accredit themselves. You know, if we think about it, it's a great opportunity to start with a temperature check through certification, which is a self-assessment. It's a low-cost model, which will provide you, as has been shared earlier, with a report of actionable insights for your operation/organisation. And then, of course, the next step that we would suggest is to take on accreditation, which is a little bit more challenging because you're going to go deeper, you'll have an auditor on site, and thus, of course, the insights, the valuable insights that you'll be provided will take you absolutely to the next level. It lays a great foundation, as has already been shared, to benchmark not only locally across verticals, but also internationally. And let's face it, our customers are not just saying, well, I want to compare Coles and Woolworths, for example. They may wish to compare right across the world, across a whole bunch of different organisations, whether it's APOS or whatever it might be. And of course, as we have already discovered, certainly with Auscontact members, that a number of them have used this particular accreditation process to underpin their decision about whether, and I'm going to say they go to the zenith, to receive recognition as part of the Auscontact National Excellence Awards. And certainly I know that Michael and the team at Fair Work actually used this as a tool, and I believe you won that year, Michael. Is that correct?
We did indeed.
Yeah, so that, I think that absolutely speaks for itself in terms of laying a foundation and then, you know, being able to have a business case such that you can go on to the next stage, because reward and recognition is incredibly important, but sometimes organisations don't necessarily see the value in taking all of those steps. So we do have some questions, which is fantastic. So Julie would like to know, what kind of questions are used in the questionnaire to measure customer satisfaction? Who's the customer for the purpose of the survey? Is it staff? So who'd like to take that on?
Look, I might, I think perhaps a quick discussion there to asking maybe Gabrielle and quickly reflecting to Michael, who's also been through the process. The questionnaire goes through and we identify as part of the diagnostic as to who the most appropriate persons are to have this review. So there is information that we feed in from the customers. However, the majority of information comes from various different areas of the organization. So your frontline staff, team leaders, managers, through to different parts like training, development, HR, finance, all the areas that are effectively sort of touch points and stakeholders. But I might hand over to Michael to further on that, and Gabrielle.
Well, in terms of customers, the type of questions are if the company currently do the customer satisfaction, voice of customer, how's the way that they do it, if they do it A survey, or if it is done in an by an independent organization, it's done internally. What are the complaints? So we have customer satisfaction, customer complaints, how's the way the complaints are handled, and those are the main aspects, I would say.
Right, and Deepak, I believe we have you online as well.
Yes, you do, Chris. Look, I think everybody's covered the answers. Unless Julie wants any more detail, we could probably go on to the next question, Fiona.
Thanks, Deepak, and we're very close to time, but we want to make sure everybody gets an opportunity. So Peter asked that he could see on the slide, the certificate of accreditation, that there was stage 3 and in brackets, mature. What does that mean?
Deepak, I might hand over to you.
Oh, Gabriel.
Sorry, what was the I didn't.
So there
interrupted
was
the communication.
So the question was, what does stage 3 in brackets mature mean? Are there different ratings?
Well, yes, we have the the first stage is in developmental stage. Then we have to go into mature state, and then to world class.
Okay.
So in essence, what's happened is your areas of improvement are identified and your gaps as you travel through that developmental stage where you are improving and it's nearing world standards. That's your stage 2, and then you go into your mature world-class standards.
Exactly.
Let's just have one last question, and again, it's from Julie. Are internal stakeholders measured as well?
Sure. Gabrielle?
Oh, yes, I can take that on. Sorry, this is Deepak here, who's just joined in. Yes, internal stakeholders are measured to the point at which where the customer service interacts with the other stakeholders supporting the customer service team or the wider product or service delivery to the customer.
Okay, thanks, Deepak. Well, given that we're at the hour, in fact, we're past the hour, we probably need to bring the webinar to a close. As you're leaving the webinar today, you will receive a pop-up, unless you've blocked it, which has got 3 great reasons to fill out the particular survey that's popping up. You're going to receive slides, recording of the webinar, get a call to learn more, and of course, what we would recommend is all of the above. And with that, can I please extend my thanks to Deepak, to Chris, to Greg, to Gabrielle, to Patty, to Michael for being part of today's webinar. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you to everybody that attended. I hope that you've gained some great insights. Thanks everyone, and have a great rest of your day wherever you happen to be. Thanks everyone.